I did some experimenting before this race for this race. We'll talk about that and anti-sandbagging too. Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis, the Cycling Greek. Another buddy of mine from USAC Racing, Frank, has joined me in this race. That means there are now two 65-year-olds racing in this crit. Now the difference between Frank and myself, other than him being stronger, is that I'm the guy with AFib. Frank is coming up behind me now. We are both wearing the red and blue military endurance sports kit. Of course, being in my usual hypoxic state this early in the race, I didn't notice that there was him behind me. Speaking of the race, let's take inventory of the current situation. We have a split, and it looks like that we are catching up to those in front of us. So that means I'm still with the front group. With previous races, I've been with the front group during the first lap, or at least most of the first lap. The difference is I'm not toward the back, and that I'm not suffering like I've suffered before. And there's a reason for that. Or maybe I should say there are possibly a number of reasons that are for that. One of those reasons could be anti-sandbagging. This is an anti-sandbagging race. So what does that exactly mean? I received a couple of responses, and one that was notable was from a Simon Airy. He listed two items. The first being that when you first sign up for the race, Zwift compares your FTP to the parameters set for that particular category that you're signing up for. My question is, what FTP are they using? Are they using the one that you declared in your profile, or are they using the FTP that's established from your zwiftpower.com? Since in the description there's no mention of zwiftpower.com being a requirement to enter this race, I'm going to guess it's the former. Let's jump back to the race for a moment. When I stated earlier that I was a lot more comfortable, that didn't mean that I was comfortable. I mean, I was hurting here, but I wasn't hurting to the degree I was before. As I've started my slide back toward the end of the lead group, I am looking at the graphics on the right. I am 22nd out of 32 in the race, and there are about 4 more people behind me before there's a gap to others, whether individual or a group. So I'm still hanging on the group. So now I am going up on the rollers, and this particular race is different than the other Crit City races I've done because they're doing this course backwards. So I'm hitting the rollers now toward the end of the lap, where obviously at the other crits, since it's backwards, I was doing it at the beginning of the lap. For whatever reason, that gives me the ability to move up a few places, therefore give me a little more buffer. Now back to Simon's response to my question on the forums. The second item that he mentioned is that if the 5-minute power produced by the rider goes above the parameters defined for that category, that rider is given the green cone of shame. Now that's going to happen regardless if it's a anti-sandbagging race or not. So then it's down to just the first item that he mentioned. It compares your FTP to the parameters that are set for that particular category. And then I forgot to mention it gives you a warning. It doesn't prevent you from signing up. It simply gives you a warning. Okay then, well, it is what it is. And it may have an effect on why I'm feeling a lot more comfortable in this race than I am in previous races, at least of the regular city crits. But that's not the only reason. Let's look at some other options. But before we do that, let's notice that now we are in lap 2. And it's rare recently that I've been in lap 2 with the front group. And I'm pretty much in the middle of the front group. So I'm enjoying this. I'm hurting a bit, but I'm enjoying it. Let's look at the things I changed up for this race. If you are a regular viewer, you know that after these races and any hard workout that I do, that I go and do some squats and deadlifts. I'm not using a massive amount of weights that you see on weightlifting YouTube videos, but they are pretty heavy for me. I have other recent Zwift race videos where I talk about why I'm doing this. Just go check it out. Anyways, I was wondering if that was the cause. Now, my legs didn't have that deadened lifting feeling during the race that I've experienced before in workouts when I've done this, when I've lifted too close to a particular ride. So I wasn't willing to do anything and make any changes in that area yet. So the next thing I did is I looked at my leading into this race and my warm-up of the race. And I decided to make a couple changes in those areas. But before I talk about that, let's go back to the race on the screen. We are heading toward the end of the second lap, and I'm still with everybody in the front group, which is totally cool. Yeah, and I'm still hurting, but that's okay too. So now we are heading into the rollering section, and I'm in 21st place out of, again, still 32, and there's about 3 or 4 people behind me before there's a big gap to those that have not been able to make it. So now I'm having a little bit of a problem getting onto the wheels, and there seems to be a split in front of me, and I'm running out of gas, and so I'm thinking, okay, well, I made it to almost 2 laps this time before I got dropped from the main group, and fortunately I have a couple people with me. Now, if I was young cycling Greek, I'd get my legs under me, then I'd try to get those guys with me, and then just go after the front group again and reconnect. But I am 65-year-old cycling Greek, and I am realizing that I don't have a lot of bananas left in my legs right now, so I'm just going to hang on to these guys for a bit, get my legs under me, and then evaluate where I am relative to the other two. Hopefully that I'll be hanging on with them till the end. Okay, back to the 2 changes that I made. The first change is I did not ride the day before, either on Zwift or on the road. Give myself an extra day of rest so my legs can recover from whatever I was doing before. And the second thing, I changed how I did my warm-up. I cut my warm-up into 2 parts. The first part I treated as if I was getting ready for a time trial. So after about 5 minutes or so of easy spinning, I then went into 3 minutes at steady 2.0 watts per kilogram, and then a 2-minute easy spin. Then I did 3 more minutes at 2.5 watts per kilogram, followed by another 2 minutes of easy spinning, then 3 watts per kilogram, then 3.5 watts per kilogram. Same pattern. After a few more minutes of easy spinning, then I did a couple of 15-second and 30-second bursts to get ready for that initial start of the race. So what actually improved my position in this race? Well, I definitely think it was the changes that I made with not riding the day before and the warm-up that I did. But I can't discount the effects of the anti-sandbagging declaration in this race. Well, a sandbagger can still sign up for this race by ignoring the FTP warning at the beginning when they try to sign up. What's probably happening is that sandbaggers will look at the title of this race, anti-sandbagging, and not even give it a try. I now jump to the end of the 7th lap right before the bell lap. I have received and used up a number of power-ups only because I didn't get the one that I wanted, the aero power-up. And so I have, again, the drafting boost that I'm using on this rollers here. And for the purpose of, I'll have one more chance to get that aero power up when we cross that start-finish line. Those are my fellow breakaway mates that are in a similar position are doing the same thing. So you notice that somebody just popped back in. He probably used a ghost power up that he really didn't need. So now the question for me, and I'm sure for the others too, are how do we do the finish here? How do we beat the others? For those of you familiar with my channel, you know what direction I'm going to go. You know that if there's a sprint between myself and a snail, you put your money on the snail. I'm going to try and jump away from these guys before the sprint. Now, there's a couple of challenges that I'm going to have. First is that this course is being run backwards than the course that I usually do. So rather than flats coming into the finish, I'm going to have those rollers coming into the finish. And the second is my breakaway partners themselves. I can always tell if I'm in a chase group how I fare relative to the others. And with this chase group, I am toward the bottom of the rung. So to break that down even further, there are 2 aspects I have to be concerned about. One, my jump compared to everyone else's jump and the ability to sustain it. And second, will I be able to gather enough energy beforehand before I do that particular effort? Of course, the amount of energy I'm able to garner is going to have an effect on how strongly I jump away from these guys and how I'm able to sustain it. And unfortunately with these guys, since I'm the bottom of the rung, I'm not able to gather a lot of extra energy because I need to keep up with these guys. These guys are pretty strong. I did pick up a power-up when we crossed the start-finish line this last time, but it's not the one that I wanted, but it is in the second tier of what I would like. For me, the second tier on this course would be the one that I have here, the draft, or the feather one to go up those rollers. Another observation I made while doing this course backwards is this section right here, the cobbled section. It's uphill, and rather being able to get a little bit of recovery, I'm now having to spend a lot to stay up with these guys going up this climb. Historically in the past, I've taken off with 0.3 mile to 1 mile to go before the finish. The shorter the distance, the less confidence I have in the outcome. But that's been on a flat course. We're now just after a half mile to go. And I'm probably going to have to take off on the rollers. These other guys are probably going to take off on the rollers too. I figure the best thing I can do is be either in second or third position on somebody's wheel so I can take advantage of that draft power up once I initiate it. I also figure that at least one other person has the arrow power up. And then I figure it probably doesn't matter if that person has the arrow power up or not. The good thing about the draft power up is that it lasts quite a while. So the question is, when do I start to activate it? Well, I should have done it right about now. But I hung on to it because I'm figuring I still have a little ways to go once we pass this. And I'm losing these guys' tails, and I got that close the gap thing, and I'm not going to be able to close it. I am hurting. So eventually I just hit that button, probably right about now. I'm not sure. Maybe right about now. Who knows? I think hypoxia took over, and I just kind of blew that. So now I hit it. That's kind of a dumbass thing, but that's what I did, and so just learning opportunity for later on. So I ended up about 22nd, I think, on this race. I came in 2 minutes 14 seconds behind leaders. I was not lapped. I was pretty happy about that. Looking on ZwiftPower.com, I came in at 18th. One of those people that got disqualified was my buddy Frank, my fellow 65-year-old buddy Frank. He got disqualified because he went too strong for the category. And by my calculations, 0.1 watt per kilogram too strong. So I told him to gain a little weight for next time. As you probably have guessed, that's me doing my after-race deadlifts. I didn't do squats this day because I'm heading into a 4-day weekend, and so I'm going to be doing some extra riding. I hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it. For you sandbaggers out there, why don't you comment below and tell me why you sandbag. For the rest of you, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.